know what I've noticed about giving talks? At just about every talk, and I'm looking at the people here on the front row, I have found there's always one person who hates me. Now, there could be many more people who hate me, but they're far more polite. But the one who seems to hate me the most sits in the first row, front and center. So I like to, yeah, you ought to smile. I like to look over the first row. Oh, it's my son. Now to sell my backlist. The last book was The Black Cat, and I heard an applause. That's terrific. I remember when that comedian, what is his name? He's very, very funny. Had Tom Hanks as his guest, and he introduced him as Tom Hank. I love that. So did Tom Hank. Tom liked it too. The Black Cat is the, I don't know, the 22nd or something like that Richard Jury novel. And I'm currently writing another one. At the same time, I'm writing a book with my son on addiction. How about that? You didn't see that coming, did you? I remember a book signing I had in Florida where in the front, and again, the front row is the place for this sort of thing. In the front row, a woman sat. This was in a Barnes & Noble, I think. And she raised her hand to ask a question, and she said, Miss Grimes, now, I have never read one of your books. Now, I always figure that right out of the gate, that's not what you say. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say, I've read all of your books. Just don't say, I've never read one. You don't follow it up by saying, I'm with the prison system. And I work particularly in addiction, drug and alcohol abuse. Alcohol, of course, as we know, isn't a drug. Drug and alcohol abuse. And I just have a question. Now I notice all of your books are named after pubs. I said, yes, they are. And she said, I couldn't imagine where all this was going. And she said, well, my question is, was there any alcohol abuse in your family? I said, oh, yes, and you're looking at it. Can you imagine? I mean, I just love questions like that. But I would like you to ask questions if you want to. It's usually the way it goes, no interest whatsoever. Well, my preferred place used to be in a pub. But now that avenue has been closed to me forever, I guess. My publisher is dying for the sequel to Send by Graves. Look at that. You see? Send by Graves was a book of poems.
Jury?
Doch nicht der Inspektor Jury. Ich nehme an, der außergewöhnliche...
Mordfällen.
Oh Gott.
Gib sie mal Spuren.
Langford, du bist Melrose!
Liked reading British mysteries, and so of course I came across British detectives. I don't know why it was that I had being an American, that I thought I could write British mysteries. I have no idea why I thought that, but I had liked reading them more than American mysteries, and so I thought if I liked reading them, I'd like writing them. Going to England once or twice a year for a short period of time, and I would drive around. I would go to different parts, and sometimes I would know the pub that I was looking for. Sometimes I would just come across a pub by accident. I mean, the names of pubs can really sort of start your mind. Rainbow's End, my goodness. I'm really attached to this character. I like Richard Jurey a lot. He's I find him a very comforting sort of individual. A writing day, usually I try and do that first, the writing. And I write usually for about, say, 4 hours a day. When I hear about writers who write for 8 hours a day, I wonder how they do it. Sometimes I don't believe them. But it's difficult because it requires, so much focus. I know when I was teaching, my students found it very hard to believe that even after writing so many books, it was still difficult for me to start every day. But it is. So I don't have to write in the office. I don't even have to write in the house. I like to write in coffee shops. I like to write different places. I write in airport lounges. It doesn't make any difference, really. It doesn't make any difference if there are a lot of people around. It does make a difference if somebody is out there cutting grass, though that makes a difference if suddenly you hear 3 different lawnmowers start up. But aside from that, I can sit on a bench and write. It doesn't make any difference if there are people around. A couple of characters talking, someone talking to Richard Jurey, and it's just that. It's kind of a snapshot sort of a thing. And I like the character and I like the atmosphere of what's going on, even though I don't know really what's going on. And it really starts from there. In one book, just to give you an idea, called I Am the Only Running Footman, what came to me when I saw that sign, it's in Mayfair in London, and I was astounded by the sign. But the scene which came to me was, let's take a little village, terraced houses, old woman inside hears running footsteps. And they seem to go by her door, and that's the end. And then they come back again. And this happened several times. I really liked that. I wasn't clever enough to figure out how to use it, so it never got into the book. But it's that sort of thing. The 3rd book that I wrote, The Anodyne Necklace, I was halfway through it, and I was stuck. I could not go any farther. And this is before I really realized that stuckdom is quite common with every book. And so I said to myself, you're writing mysteries, for heaven's sake. Of course you should write an outline. So I started at the beginning of the book. I had the book half finished. I started at the beginning. I wrote this very detailed outline. When I got to the point, I couldn't write any more of the outline. I think my problem is I don't want to know. Because if I know, then it's not really all that much fun anymore. Not that writing is really fun in that sense, but I mean, I just sort of like not to know. I have a book of poems that was published to the publisher's great financial loss. It's called Send By Graves, and I really like this book. I was hoping perhaps it would become a cult favorite. That has not happened, as far as I know. But the first poem in this book, I had no intention of writing a book, but I wrote this poem. It's called Waiting for the Hitman. And it's about a woman who all of her life has been followed by a hitman. And after I finished this poem, it was exactly then that I thought about, no, wait a minute, you're not really a very good poet. Maybe you would rather, given the content of the poetry, that maybe I would rather write fiction. Yes, I said. And right after that I said, I'd like to write mysteries. Yes, British mysteries. Yeah.